Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, tracking the Toronto Raptors 118-102 loss to the Boston Celtics. And firstly, Merry Christmas to everyone celebrating, listen to the podcast. Obviously, the Toronto Raptors finally got a Christmas Day game, and regardless of how this went, unfortunately it wasn't the greatest one to watch of the season, but they got the game. It's fun to just be festive, be in the Christmas spirit watching the Toronto Raptors. So I'm really appreciative of that. I really liked watching this team play over Christmas, liked the atmosphere, liked kind of the things they had going on. But unfortunately, the Christmas Day game had to come this time of year during this season because the Toronto Raptors extremely undermanned going up against the Boston Celtics, and the Celtics took it to them. So let's dive straight into this game. Obviously, the Toronto Raptors without Pascal Siakam, Norman Powell, and Marc Gasol, including Matt Thomas and Hernandez off the bench. But ever since we've gotten these injuries, we've really struggled in the first quarter starting off games, and we struggle at getting leads, trying to, coming out against other teams' best starters, best players, and taking the lead. And that makes sense with our number one options going down, and tonight was no difference. Even though we started 10-0, the Boston Celtics called a timeout, and they really started driving the lanes. And then we saw wings like Jaylen Brown get hot. And once you have a player of the caliber of the Boston Celtics wings like Tatum, Hayward, Brown, once you let them get a few easy shots going, get their confidence up, it's going to be tough to guard them as the game goes along. But the real issue in the first half, why the Raptors got down by such a great margin, was the turnovers. When the Celtics had their starters out there especially, the Toronto Raptors just weren't able to score, and they weren't able to run their offense effectively. And I think there's a few reasons for this, but firstly, it's our point guards, Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry. They did a solid job at points of this game for throwing nice dump-offs to Ibaka and Boucher, and we'll talk about Boucher after. But it wasn't as smooth. It wasn't as proficient as we're used to seeing these guys play. They combined for 9 turnovers tonight, and that's fine when they're the two guards. They have the ball in their hands for most times, but if you want to beat a team as disciplined as the Boston Celtics, you're going to need to make a little bit better decisions and not go in and jump all over the place and then throw some wild stuff. We saw Kyle dribble off his foot a couple times, the ball going out of bounds, some silly travel calls, and I think at points in this game they looked a little bit rushed. And it's fine if they're playing fast, because the Toronto Raptors are a really fast-paced team when they're going, but there's a big difference between playing fast and being rushed. And the Toronto Raptors, the Celtics, and to give credit, the Celtics ran some schemes where they threw Fred and Kyle, obviously being undersized point guards, into places where they had to make passes over taller defenders. And when you're faced as a smaller player with two bigger guys on you, want to get the ball off your hands as soon as possible, because one, someone's open, and two, you can't hold the ball on for too long while you have two longer guys on you. You'll get it poked loose. So I saw the Celtics did a decent job at blitzing them and making them rush like teams used to do to DeMar and Kyle in the backcourt during the playoffs. So that's something that's going to have to be fixed. And secondly, with Marc Gasol out, ever since Marc Gasol has gone down, the Toronto Raptors offense looks completely different. Usually because Gasol is such a good passer. They have him planted the high post, and I guess that's somewhere you really see it now, because we sometimes said, hey, Marc Gasol, we want him in the low block, getting some more buckets, and usually he's just posted out by the 3-point line at the top of the key. But it makes sense now, because usually we run our offense, we dump it to him in the high post, and people are running cutters, and it's a great offense that Nick Nurse is running because it leads to open threes. And the way Gasol can just pass out of that high post, it's a remarkable sight to see. But without him here, the ball is mostly in the hands of Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet, trying to create something with Ibaka setting a screen. A lot of pick and roll the Toronto Raptors have been running the past few games, and that's a solid offense. I'd say about 20 out of the 30 teams in the league run that sort of offense, and a lot of them are good offensive teams. But unfortunately, it relies heavily on Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry being able to get you a lot of buckets, command all the defense, and the wing players being able to cut precisely, making smart movements, smart motions, and moving for the teammates. And I guess we're the Toronto Raptors, it's not their number one offense. Their number one offense when we have Gasol in the high post and we let people run. But Ibaka and Boucher have done a solid job rolling to the net, but we don't see many of the three-point shooters, McCaw and OG, ready to shoot those threes from the wings. I think they cut decently, but they're not ready to fire it as soon as the shot goes up, and then the defense can sag in on Lowry and Fred, and that's why we see some of these turnovers. And we just need, if we're going to run this pick-and-roll style offense, we need McCaw and OG to really be more ready on the wings. And obviously Terrence Davis is also in that position too, but he's more of a ball handler. He's more of a guy that's more productive when the ball's in his hands, but that's not going to happen when he's on the court with Fred and Kyle, and he plays well in that, obviously, our regular offense, but it's a bit weird seeing him try to be a spot-up shooter because he's not ready for that. It's not his game, so if the Toronto Raptors are going to continue to be injured, continue to have these players out, especially Gasol or, and Pascal Siakam, who can get you a bucket, because Kyle Lowry can for stretches, and we said this at the beginning of the year. We can't expect Kyle Lowry to be 2016 Kyle Lowry for the whole entire season. That is just too much of an ask for Kyle Lowry at this point in his career, having been through the Toronto, been our league guy for so many seasons, and then having last year, a couple years where he went on a deep championship run. He's an older point guard, all that sort of stuff. So he can do it for a quarter. He can do it for a stretch against the Dallas Mavericks if we need a desperation comeback, but it can't be our number one offense. And he's been trying to throw it down in the paint to Ibaka to roll men, but our only big people are Chris Boucher and Serge Ibaka, and they're not even that big when you match them up against a Cantor or one of those guys. Our three-point shooters are just not knocking down the shots. So we need players to, if we're going to run this offense, we need shooters to hit their shots. And even Fred VanVleet, he was 2-5 tonight, but wasn't firing at a rate we would have liked to see. Fred VanVleet obviously coming off an injury, and we can't, as Raptors fans, we cannot trash on players shooting and all that sort of stuff like we did with Kyle Lowry and Serge Ibaka when they came back from injury. It takes a couple games to get back in the swing of things in terms of your shooting form and all that. So Fred, obviously feeling that, went to the lane a bit more, even though he did shoot 40% from three, which is really solid. But Fred, he passed up on a few shots that he usually takes. So he's getting back in the swing of things. But people need to hit shots if we're gonna beat good teams. I think we're smart enough. Nick Nurse can outcoach a bad team, a mediocre team like the Pistons or the Wizards, whoever we play. But if we want to beat the Celtics, want to beat some heavyweights in the Eastern Conference, the Western Conference, we're going to need people to knock down shots. And that's OG Anunoby tonight. Really looked out of sorts. He wasn't looking for shots. He made a few drives where he's a bit out of control and just picked up his dribble out of nowhere. OG Anunoby has to be looking for his three-point shot, and his handle is tighter, but he's not good enough with his handle to break people down if they're kind of sagged off him a little bit. He can use his size a little bit, but sometimes people take charges on him. But he needs to be looking for his jump shot first and then those drives, because he'll get around people if they're playing the three. His handle's not there yet. It's certainly improved, but it's not there yet where he can beat good Boston Celtics defenders to get in the paint. He can beat bad teams' defenders, but, and he's a great shooter. He was one of the best three-point shooters. I believe he was third in the league 20 games into the season in terms of three-point shooting percentage. So he's good enough to shoot it when he's confident, but his confidence has just waned over the past few games. I want to see that confident OG letting the three-ball fire back as we go over the course of the next few games without Pascal Siakam, Norman Powell, Marc Gasol. And as for the bench guys, TD, I think he played a solid game, but you can tell he's a bit out of position playing as an off-ball guy. So I think Nick Nurse either needs to put the ball in his hands a little bit more to get his offense going now that we don't have a lot of scorers on the team, make him more of an offensive focal point. Because if he played this game and we have Norman Powell, Pascal Siakam taking a lot of excess shots, this is a perfectly fine game for Terrence Davis, but it's not perfectly fine when we don't have scores on the court, because he's capable of scoring. So the ball either needs to be in his hands or he needs to be smarter playing off ball, because he has a great basketball IQ. He's a very smart player on the court, but I feel like he just hasn't played this sort of position for a lot of his career, and he's just learning, feeling through that, and sometimes he can get a bit passive when he doesn't have the ball in his hand. So he's got to be ready to come off those screens and shoot those threes, because he's a great three-point shooter. Look to drive on those, make those interior passes that he's capable of doing. I'm very confident in TD, and the fact that he's able to maintain this sort of role as an undrafted rookie, remarkable to see. He's going to have a great career. And Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, tonight, one of his worser games of the season, in my opinion, and ones that he's played decent minutes. But firstly, the thing he's out there on the floor for his defense, he's good on ball. He's never bad on ball. I've never seen him play a game where he's gotten completely blown by or anything like that. But tonight, Nick Nurse ran a lot of zone defense, and it made a lot of sense to do that tonight, where, because a 2-3 zone is not like one of those traps or anything like that he ran against James Harden. A 2-3 zone is still a pretty safe defense to run. It's tough to score on when you run it properly, but since we're undersized, we had to do it because we couldn't have a one-on-one matchup between Boucher and Enes Kanter when they were matched up on the court together. Even Ibaka and Enes Kanter, that's a Offensively for Cantor, he's a great offensive big man. It's tough for him, or for Raptors defenders without a guy as big as Bruling as Gasol to guard a player like that. And we ran the zone against him, and you need players, and actually, to be fair, Malcolm Miller did a decent job of it when he was on the court. Fortunately, Malcolm Miller doesn't really do anything else too great, or hasn't the past couple games where he's gotten minutes, but where Rondé could thrive is when he's on the backside of that defense, hitting the bigs underneath the rim, and he just really wasn't doing that. We saw a lot of offensive rebounds from guys like Tice, Cantor, underneath the rim, which honestly killed our momentum when we tried to make a counterpunch to the runs the Celtics were making. Then, and especially in the first quarter and the third quarter, when they put their big lineup in and we had Rondé underneath the rim, Malcolm Miller, who did a decent job, but he's still undersized as well, and obviously Boucher. He's not going to be able to one-on-one Enes Kanter. We can't expect him to do that. He's a power forward playing as our center, and he hustles tremendously, so he needs help when we're on the back of that 2-3, and it just wasn't provided by Rondé tonight. And Rondé's offense was abysmal tonight. He was missing layups, he wasn't ready for passes, and he's got to make his layups. That's the thing. That's the thing with Rondé. He can't shoot. He can't shoot threes, so you've come to expect that. He said we're not asking him to be a remarkable scorer by any means, but he hasn't been a negative on offense, and honestly in some games a positive, because he's a great cutter, and he knows how to score in the mid-post, the semi-post. But unfortunately tonight really couldn't get anything going. He took 7 shots. I think about 3 of them were just a bit chaotic, but I'm not asking too much out of Rondé. I just want him to be good at the things he's supposed to be good at, because if he can't do those things, which makes him the unique player he is, he's not able to shoot it for you. He's not a threat of a floor spacer. If anything, he's making the space for guys like Terrence Davis or Lowry, Fred, whoever he's sharing the court with. He's lessening that space on offense, but he needs to be better at doing the things he's supposed to be good at, or else he's going to fall out of the rotation. That's just how it be. Anyways, lots of things to improve on for the Raptors. Let's swing into the segments. Tonight, the spicy P-lay of the day. New animation. It's my Christmas gift to you guys. Unfortunately, I promised it probably a month ago, 2 months ago now, but yeah, the semester got the best of me. I didn't have much time for downtime to make the animation, but now we're back home for Christmas. Had a day yesterday to iron that all out, and hope you guys like it. But tonight, the spicy P-lay of the day. It's going to, one of them was Serge Ibaka at the beginning of this game. He was dumped the ball in the lane. He missed a couple shots before, and he said, you know what? I'm dunking this over the undersized Celtics defenders. They didn't have Cantor on the court. And when Ibaka wants to go up strong, he's certainly capable of it. I would like to see it a little bit more often tonight. But the Celtics had solid defensive schemes, and they were able to play it out. And Boucher, he had some great plays as well, finishing in the lane in traffic. Hit a 3 where Cantor was really confused that this guy on the deep bench at the Toronto Raptors could shoot on top of everything he was doing. So Boucher out there silencing the haters. Yeah, I didn't even talk about Boucher much in this game. He was one of the bright spots. 24 points for Boucher, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks for Le Bloc Québécois, 7 of 10 from the field. And honestly, give this man the ball more often. If he's playing like this, the offense is stagnant. He's going to need the ball because when Boucher is hot, man, he doesn't miss. He doesn't miss. Only from the free throw line he misses when he's playing good, but he can finish underneath the rim, the 3-point line. He's proving all the doubters wrong, and even Riker and I weren't sure if he was going to be a rotation player at the start of the season, but despite his smaller frame, he's a player that's showing day in, day out. He needs to be getting minutes for this Toronto Raptors team, and I don't know, I love to see it from my Canadian guy, but not all plays can be the spicy P-lay of the day, and some just make you say, oh, geez. And tonight, the OGs play of the game. It's going to fellow Canadian O'Shea Brissett, and he's a guy that's an interesting player. He's been really good for the 905 this season, but not much minutes with the Toronto Raptors, and maybe because he's not used to playing with the big team or playing against the guys in practice, he said, I'm supposed to score on this Toronto Raptors team, and that's what he did when he was out there. This play summed up this game, to be honest, but the Celtics player, I think Langford, shot a 3. O'Shea tried to get the rebound, and he didn't even jump. He just kind of flicked it, kind of missed it, fell through his fingertips, and ended up going in the Toronto Raptors basket somehow. But no other way to sum that play up than saying, oh, geez. And finally, the infamous, the one, the only, Damari Carroll Gold Star Award. And tonight, it's going to Patrick McCaw. He's shown a couple decent games as of late, but he's a really perplexing player, man. No one's really seen him play that much. He's never gotten consistent run with any of his teams. He's shown flashes that he knows how to do all the little things, be a role player that just fits perfectly within a well-functioning system. And I think the intangibles he has, because he does everything technically. Technically, he's really good at everything. Defense, three-point shooting, he can pass the ball pretty well. He's a great IQ in terms of knowing where to be and all that. So he fits well within a system in theory. But the thing I find about Patrick McCaw is some nights, usually confidence, right? The thing that confidence most affects is your shooting. And every player goes through that, even role players like Danny Green. His confidence would be all over the place. And I wouldn't be critiquing, you wouldn't get the gold star if he had a bad shooting night, which he did. But the thing about McCaw is the confidence, it seems like, affects the rest of his game, because his defense is usually fine night in, night out. Tonight it wasn't great, and that feeds into the gold star, but he wasn't really cutting tonight. He looked lost within the game. And usually role players that are supposed to be gritty players, they're not letting their confidence affect how they play defense, how they pass the ball, how they can be a decent offensive player. But the only way to describe McCaw's performance or ability tonight is nothingness. That's what I'm calling McCaw for tonight. Didn't provide anything positive on offensive end, not even cuts, not anything at all. And it's not like Terrence Davis. It's not like Rondae Hollis-Jefferson where they're having a bad game and you think that they can bounce back. But when McCaw isn't doing the little things, unlike Terrence Davis, unlike Rondae Hollis-Jefferson even, he doesn't have a skill that you can look to and say, that's an above average NBA skill. You can look at Terrence Davis, you say his three-point shooting, I'd consider that above average. His scoring ability, his athleticism, yes, it's not all complete, it's not all there together, but if the Toronto Raptors are struggling, then maybe one of those skills that Terrence Davis has, even if he's having a bad game, it's a threat to the other team, and it's something that could spark the Toronto Raptors back on a run. McCaw doesn't have any of those skills, and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, who's an outstanding rebounder, an outstanding energy provider for the defensive end. McCaw, there's nothing about his game that's ever going to spark this Toronto Raptors team to a comeback, so it's just real confusing. I think he plays better when he's surrounded by better players, and he's more of a stable force and doesn't do negative things, which I guess is fine because he rarely turns over the ball and won't do anything stupid, but he did miss that layup on that possession where Nick Nurse started running the full court trap, and TD got the steal, swung it to McCaw. Then McCaw just threw up the most sad-looking layup over a defender trying to take a charge. So it's just, I don't know what to think of McCaw. The sample size has not been too big in terms of how many games he's had under his belt. He's got some fans hyped. Some games everyone's excited about McCaw. Some games people just, you get games like this. So let us know what you guys think of McCaw, the Toronto Raptors, what we need to do with all of our players out, and I'd like to see us get a few wins over the next couple games, and I'm sure Nick Nurse will make some changes, but yeah. Anyways, you guys are the best for making this far. Check out the Twitter, the Instagram, all that cool stuff. Happy holidays to everyone out there listening. Hope everyone's enjoying the winter season, whether you're having a big old feed or just enjoying a break, or if you're working, you can see a few highlights of fun NBA basketball. Unfortunately, the Raptors Celtics wasn't fun, but I'm sure the Sixers Bucks will be good, or the Lakers Clippers tonight. Anyways, I'm signing off. Cheers.